And now let's cover our sky with it. Add more water so it doesn't look too bold. Start painting from the very top of the sheet. Then, just use water to move the pigment around and blend it right on the paper. We're blending the warm bottom and the cool top right on our sky. The most saturated part of the sky we're pushing over here into the right corner. First, let's blend the tones right on the paper. See how beautifully that warm accent is forming? Honestly, that's enough. You can either dry the sky now or just keep working. But since my paper is catching the light and there's a glare, I'm going to dry it a bit so you can see the whole painting better. Let's add a little more pigment here. We're drying it with a hairdryer. We've dried our work. I always say, dry it until it feels like a drum, so the whole sheet tightens up again. Because with all that water, the paper got wavy. Now it's all nice and flat again. Next, we're going to work on the background. It's going to be light and cool. Cool means we'll use cool-toned pigments. Let's grab some ultramarine and just a touch of cadmium red light to give it a violet tint. I want to show you on a separate sheet how we'll handle the background. The background is done pretty much in one stroke. Actually, a lot of elements here are done in just one stroke. That way, you won't get any drips. All right, let me put down a sheet. We're using a flat brush, ideally one that's as wide as our background area. Let's mix up a light violet shade. Hang on a sec. Grab some ultramarine and cadmium red light. Add more water to make it a bit cooler. The paint is fresh, so you get a lot right away. That's why we add more water so the brush doesn't drag across dry paper. Take your flat brush for painting and a thin brush for details. So what do? We lay down the color in just one touch, and in some spots, right into the wet area, we add a little reddish tint. And then right away, soften the bottom edge. With a thin brush, pick up the same color you have here, and while it's still wet, start adding some details. You could do this on dry paper too, but when you work into the wet, the details look so much nicer. In some spots, go a bit denser. Add a little accent here and there. Makes sense, right? We're going to do the same thing here now. Let's mix up our pretty light violet tone for the background. Add plenty of water so the color stays light. And with one stroke, follow the shapes we've mapped out. Add a bit more red in some places. Oops, that's a bit too much red. No worries. Just soften the bottom edge and fade that color out with water. Everything's already starting to dry here, so let's not mess with it anymore. The only thing you can do is add a denser accent somewhere, just a little spot. And then, with just a hint of color, almost just water, you can add some accents. I'm basically painting with water now. There's hardly any pigment on my brush. Very lightly, very gently, we add a few touches. I think we can leave it as is for now. Let the background dry. Now let's start working on the left side of our background. Here too, we've got a light color, but with a warm touch. You can use a regular round synthetic brush here, or a thinner flat brush if you want to work out some details. For this, take the color we've already mixed, add more water. Grab some cadmium orange, add just a bit, and blend it right into our color while it's still wet. The fine details are handled just like before. Again, just add them in little spots. Barely touching the wet paper with the brush, I add some darker accents here and there. They'll blend in beautifully. See, it's already starting to dry here, and our dark accents have sunk in. That's just the paper doing its thing. I'm going to flip the sheet over and practice on it. Watch how we're going to work with this shape. We need to have two brushes ready. One brush will have paint on it and the other will just have clean water. We need to wet both flat brushes. Load up your ultramarine really thick. Use less water, you want almost pure paint, like a sour cream consistency. To that, add cadmium red light so you get a really dense dark mix. I'm going to mix up a bigger batch so I have enough for everything. So, how are we going to do this? Using our pencil sketch as a guide, we block in the ship with this really dense mix. With a clean brush, we pull the pigment to the right. So we put the densest color here, and with a clean brush, just drag the pigment out. You can also let it run down into the water a bit so you don't get a harsh line. It'll all end up in the reflection anyway. We'll add warm shades to this color too, like cadmium orange. But the main thing is to make it look nice on your end. Basically, I just showed you how to do it on dry paper. Now, you can wet the area where you'll be. Basically, we can keep working in this same spot. Now we need to connect this part to our background, to the sky. There's a lot of empty space here again. And right here, we're going to make a nice smoke effect that either flows into our ship or comes out of it. That way, we're adding an accent to the port, to the idea of some port infrastructure. So let's mix up a violet shade. We already have this color on the palette, but I want to mix it up a bit cleaner. I'm grabbing ultramarine and cadmium red light. And we'll add some warm shades here too. That'll be cadmium orange. For the smoke, I usually use a calligraphy brush. And we also need a clean brush with just water. If your water in the bucket is already dirty, go ahead and change it. My water's still good to use for now. With these random strokes, I bring in the smoke, washing it out in some spots so it blends in. So, what did we cover in today's lesson? We took off the tape and the painting instantly looks clean. All the mess on the edges is gone. First of all, we learned how to work with the image. So, we're working with shapes. It looks like just a shape here and a shape there, but in the end, you get a whole ship. So the goal of this technique is to transfer the image using big shapes and to work with watercolor in a really airy, spacious way. Here, we use shapes to show our seaport landscape and worked in this style. So, we were working with the dry-on-dry technique. I showed you how to make our ship look nice and finished. It might feel a bit tough at first, but if you keep practicing this technique, you'll totally get the hang of it and use some of these tricks later on. We talked about planning, the horizon line, gradient washes, washes in general and how they mix, glazing, and so on. That's it for today's lesson. Thank you.